6 p.m. this evening. Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting today is being held on Wajak Noongar Budja, and I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I thank all past and present members of the community that have supported the city to better understand and value Noongar culture within the city of Wanneroo. Please note that the audio-visual proceedings of tonight's meeting will be live broadcast online with the exception of matters discussed behind closed doors. The broadcast of the proceedings of the meeting can be accessed live and on demand through the City of Wanneroo YouTube channel. Attendances, we are as per the record, but we have Councillor Wright on a leave of absence. We have Councillor Moore, who is an apology, Councillor Seif, who is an apology as well. And we now go to, we have a request for electronic attendance from Councillor Huntley, and I'll ask my fellow members to vote on accepting Councillor Huntley into the meeting, please, in accordance with her electronic attendance policy. Can we have a show of hands for this, please, councillors? And that is passed unanimously. So could we please include Councillor Huntley electronically onto the meeting as consensus of council? Thank you. I don't want her up on the thing like that. Thank you. Let the record show that Councillor Huntley has been authorised by Council to attend this briefing session by electronic means in accordance with the details as signed in the request documentation submitted in her request form dated the 21st of May. Deputations. Deputations are to be presented during the briefing session at item 3 on the order of business. Deputations must relate to a report on the current briefing session agenda. A deputation is not to exceed 3 speakers in number, and only those speakers may address the council members. Speakers of a deputation will collectively have a maximum of up to 10 minutes, dependent on the number of deputations received, to address the council members, unless an extension of time is granted. A deputation is to be in the form of statement and no debate or discussion on the matter is to occur. Questions from council members relating to the subject matter should be reserved until the administration has presented on the relevant report during the meeting. However, a point of clarification by a council member on a specific statement may be permitted. There is an opportunity for public question time for members of the public at item 7 in the order of business. So we have 3 public deputations received for this evening. The first one is about the sponsorship agreement with the Wanneroo Agricultural Society Wanneroo Show, and the speaker is Dot Newton. Mrs Newton, would you like to come to the dais and just give us your name and suburb and proceed with your deputation? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Dot Newton and I still live in Wanneroo. As you've said, this deputation is based on 418 in tonight's agenda. It's only me, half my committee are ill at the moment. I don't know what's going around, but I don't want it. So good evening, Mayor and councillors and staff. Thank you for granting this opportunity. As you may know, I'm the current president of the Agricultural Society, and the support from the council has been constant, from the road board days to the Shire to the city. I am, of course, unsure how many people have attended the shows over the last 114 years. However, we are one of the largest, well-attended shows in the state. I don't believe there are any elected members here tonight that were on council during the Centenary show in 2009. The gates you passed through on Arete Avenue were part of council's acknowledgement to the Centenary celebrations, along with the medal that was struck to mark the occasion. So please look at those gates if you haven't done already. They are beautiful. Our show is organised and run by volunteers from our community, and it's in my personal opinion that it is a hallmark event in the city. Sadly, many attendees think the council organise and run this show and that our hard-working volunteers are receiving a payment for their work. In the introduction, there's no reference to the original handing over the lease. 1909 to 1948, the Agricultural Society looked after the showgrounds. Admittedly, it didn't look as beautiful as it does today, and I think the council do a brilliant job in looking after it. Also, there's no mention of just how much we put back into the showgrounds. For example, the roadway that leads from Ariti Avenue around to the car park at the football club rooms was paid for by the Agricultural Society following a good year of revenue. We also paid for the fencing along Ariti Avenue that goes down along the showgrounds. So I'd just like to add that little bit, if you don't mind. I won't give you a history, but I looked at Trove newspapers on the 1999 show, and I thought, I'll print it out and see what it all says, because it's difficult to read online, it's such small print. And it came to 11 pages, and everybody that entered that show virtually has a road or building named out after them. It was like a trip round the city, and that was 1909, so that tells you just how long those families have lived and prospered in our area. So in holding the annual show, we support local business and community groups. We donate many, many family passes via the community services, the state government community services and our own, I hope. Our schools are always applying for family passes for quiz nights. We also make a donation to other city community groups, and the community groups that help us in the show are all given a donation for their service. Ticket prices have once again been set for no increase because in recent years, as we are aware, some members of the community are under financial stress. We haven't increased the prices for 3 years now. I'm not sure how long we can carry that on because our costs are escalating at a rapid rate. The purpose of my attendance tonight is on page 278, item 3, annual deliverables. We are concerned at the provision of a dedicated stalls for all city services that wish to attend the show. Stall space requirement and location to be agreed by both parties. This went to the meeting last night, which is why I wasn't able to give you a précis of my deputation until today. We are concerned at the provision of dedicated stalls for all the city services that wish to attend the show. Stall space requirement and location to be agreed by both parties is not going to be easy for us. In previous shows, we have provided 3 spaces, one for the ranger services, one for waste management education, and both have been supplied prime sites and have used the opportunity to assist and educate our community. Added to this, we have provided a 6 metre by 6 metre site for the promotion of other city services. All sites have an excellent access and we have never received any negative feedback. Well, I personally haven't seen anything in writing. We are requesting that paragraph 3 be amended to reflect the sites supplied to the city as in the past rather than an unknown quantity. This will enable our Chief Ground Steward to continue the allocation process. He's already begun that. We've already taken a lot of bookings for the grounds already. People like to get in early so they don't miss out. So I'm asking tonight if you would consider altering that one part on that report to reflect what we've done in the past, which seems to have worked and been adequate for both parties. Thank you. Madam Mayor, I don't wish to be rude, but I do have to leave. I'm dealing with a family that need AJP. Thank
Not
you.
a problem.
So no questions.
Thank you, Ms Newton. Okay, we also have our second deputation is response to petition PTO 1/424, closure of pedestrian access way, Flinders Place, Alexander Heights. Is Mr Staltari here? So I'm coming here a bit later, but I've just been advised that I will read it on his behalf. Okay. Dear City of Wanneroo, I would like to request the closure of pedestrian access way for Flinders Place, Alexander Heights. If the pedestrian access way is not closed off, then would like to see a minimum of the knee-height copper logs removed and replaced with fencing similar to across the road on Mirrabooka Avenue that fences off bushland. There is also a pedestrian access way to Mirrabooka Avenue via Elfa Court. What has occurred, outlined in the history of events, has had a serious and lasting impact on my wife and daughter. They no longer feel safe in our home, and my daughter constantly experiences a heightened level of anxiety and stress. My 11-year-old daughter no longer sleeps in her bedroom anymore due to the concrete mound being thrown through her window, covering her bed in glass. I have to constantly tell her to stop biting her nails. She frequently experiences flashbacks of the events that have taken place. She suffers from sleep deprivation, which is affecting her school life and her general health. She no longer goes to the toilet by herself. We have to stand outside the toilet door every time she goes to the toilet or bathroom. She no longer enters her bedroom to get clothing, etc., without my wife or I. This is seriously impacting my daughter's mental health and general well-being. As a family, we cannot function like this any longer. We are seeking effective, immediate action. Approximately Saturday, January 2023 at 3 p.m, a neighbour observed 4 older teenagers and young adults walk past my home, then stop, all putting on ski masks covering their entire faces, taking the 4 chairs out the front of our home in our alfresco area. Using the chairs, attempting to get over the side fence to our home. Fortunately, we have colour bond fencing with lattice extension at the top, so they appeared to give up and move on. Called the police. After approximately 20 minutes, called police a second time requesting attendance. Called police again that evening expressing disappointment that 2 phone calls were made but no attendance. Police then attended the next day, Sunday evening, and police given, that's the grammar, given approximately 300 millimetres makeshift knife that was located on our lawn. I received an apology from police when attending. I then received a second apology from police via phone call on the Monday. Sunday, 21st of January 2024, approximately 10 p.m, a large concrete rock was thrown through my 10-year-old daughter's window, shattering glass all over her bed. Thank God she was not in her bed at the time. Police immediately attended. Monday, 22nd of January 2024, approximately 9:30 p.m, several limestone rocks were thrown at a sectional garage door, causing dents in the door. Police immediately attended. All times the people entering and leaving via Flanders Place from the pedestrian access way. These are only some of the events that have occurred over time. See history of the events with police incident reports numbers for other incidents, also including neighbours in Flanders Place, Alexander Heights, had roller shutters installed to the 3 front windows of home Monday 29th of January 2024 and are now looking at CCTV. See enclosed documents for history of events with police incident report numbers, school counselling for Emily Staltari, attending a doctor appointment on Monday the 10th of June to address our concerns over our daughter's continued heightened level of anxiety and fear. Kind regards, Richard and Caroline Staltari. Thank you for your deputation, Mr Staltari, and our hearts go out to you with what you've had to put up with this bad behaviour. We now go on to our second deputation, which is towards 5.1, motion to revoke Council Resolution ASO 50424. The speakers are Wendy Garston, Rosalind Casey and Imogen Sash. Would you like to come to the podium and give us the name and suburb that you live in? Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Garstone. I live in Maylands. I'm the first of 3 speakers to talk on behalf of the Wanneroo tree canopy advocates in regard to the Cordelia Place street tree. Firstly, I'd like to note that this tree would have been removed last week, if not for the speedy actions by the councillors who organised and signed a motion of revocation. We offer them our sincere thanks. The possible removal of this tree has been reported on widely, ABC Radio, the West Australian, Perth Now and the Sunday Times. The fact that this one tree has gained so much media attention reflects a growing awareness that the Perth Peel area is in a tree canopy crisis. Many across the Perth Peel area are wondering how the Cordelia Place tree came to be at risk. We think that this council simply cannot afford to remove trees like this healthy and sound tree. Health experts cite that a 30% canopy coverage is the minimum benchmark for a healthy community, while Alexander Heights has a total canopy coverage of just 7%. And as per the city's urban forest strategy, the council aims to increase canopy coverage to be within a range of 15 to 20% by 2040. All of Perth is facing unknown levels of tree loss due to the increasing threat of the polyphagous shothole borer. We just don't know how many trees in this city will be cut down due to future infestation. We believe that each and every concern given by the Cordelia Place petitioners and by the councillors who spoke in support of the tree removal can be disproven or dealt with. The officer's report addressed most of these issues, so we'll address those raised by councillors. Some councillors expressed concern about the safety risk of this tree. We find this confusing as the tree has been assessed by a qualified and experienced arborist and found to be structurally sound. Residents are statistically more likely to be injured by melanoma than limb drop. We believe that promoting the widowmaker myth is a huge disservice to the urban forest overall. We would really like to see councillors working to promote positive attitudes regarding the urban forest. One argument in support of removing this tree is that the species is no longer planted in residential areas. There are many, many tree species across all local governments that are in the ground now, but have since been removed from planting lists. And this will continue to be the case as officers adapt to new information and respond to impacts of climate change and the shothole borer, for instance. The Queensland box tree is no longer used by most councils, but it is one of the most dominant species in many areas. Retrospective removal is simply costly to the overall urban forest. No tree will ever be perfect for everyone. That is why the street tree policy exists, to guide objective decision-making. Invasive roots damaging driveways, we believe, is no reason to remove this tree. It all comes back to good management and maintenance, as we understand has been provided at this property. The cost of maintenance of street trees is part of the operations budget for this council, for this tree and every other street tree. The financial benefits that street trees bring to a community far outweigh the cost to maintain them. We only need to refer to Wanneroo's own urban forest strategy, which lists the economic benefits of street trees. Thank you for your time. Ros will continue our deputation.
Good evening. My name is Ros Casey and I live in Wanneroo. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for providing the opportunity to add to my fellow deputies' reasons why it's so important that council revokes its decision in this particular instance. My concern is regarding precedence and community perception. I'm worried that if the tree is cut down, it will create a very damaging precedent with an increase in residents requesting and expecting approval to remove a perfectly healthy tree on the basis of minor, easily rectified root damage to a driveway, or if the tree has acquired the ill-founded reputation of widowmaker. A Tree Logic online article reported, research demonstrates that the overall risk to the public from falling trees is extremely low, representing about 1 in 10 million chance of an individual being killed by a falling tree or part of a tree in any given year. My second concern is community perception. To quote contemporary American writer Terry Goodkind, reality is irrelevant, perception is everything. Council's decision to remove the tree against the recommendation of administration could be perceived as council having a lack of confidence in its administration team, even though that's not the reality. Such perception could see a rise in the sometimes brazen illegal removal of verge trees. Someone even advertised on Marketplace a free tree if someone would come and dig it out. From the photo, it was obviously a recently planted council verge tree. Unbelievable. Community Facebook posts on verge trees, and there's a surprisingly regular number of them, most often contain disparaging, to put it politely, comments about council. When I and others defend council to these ill-informed posters, we can cop some pretty vitriolic responses, some so offensive that they had to be removed. I'm sure councillors will be familiar with the type of comments I'm referring to. What message will it send to the community if council overrides the expert advice and recommendations of its administration team? And what is the point of having a strong street tree policy if council is perceived any way weak in upholding it? I thank you for your kind consideration of this deputation and trust that together with the further information provided by administration to allay concerns relating to the Cordelia Place Verge Tree 1, Council will vote unanimously to rescind its original decision and endorse administration's recommendation that all 3 verge trees not be removed. Thank you, and please remember, every tree counts.
Hello, my name is Imogen. I live in Yanchep. A recent change.org petition in relation to the Cordelia Place tree attracted almost 10,000 signatures in just 6 weeks. An ABC radio story on Facebook attracted 200 comments, and the hard copy petition ran by the WTCA attracted 77 signatures in just a few days. It's apparent that people are concerned, and the message is quite clear that every tree does matter. The Angophoria costata is one of few very large trees remaining in the area. Magpies and many nocturnal species like tawny frogmouths and the common owl need trees like this to roost and for protection. This tree is located between the Kandula bushland and the bushland in Highview Park, which is a haven for these species. We plead for you not to take away this resting spot from our wildlife. The City of Wanneroo has often proudly stated it's a growth council. However, new suburbs are being built with inadequate space for trees. Older suburbs such as Wanneroo and Yanchep are losing trees from fence to fence, and there are no laws even to protect a single tree on private property. We have just experienced one of our longest, driest summers on record. To combat the exhausting heat, we must increase and maintain our canopy. Being a growth suburb should not just be an increase in asphalt, brick paving, or colorbond. A street tree provides amenity to its street's residents, visitors, and neighbourhood, typically over decades. Meanwhile, property ownership on average changes every 7 years. There are many resolutions on how 30% canopy coverage can be achieved. A starting point should be the precedent set by the City of Wanneroo, and this is that council does not remove a healthy and sturdy tree. It is important that we work together to educate and talk about the positive value of trees and work with residents to find solutions to address any nuisance reports. In conclusion, we do thank the City's officers for adhering to the City's street tree policy and for their comprehensive and well-considered reports. Having officers with a high level of experience and knowledge of tree canopy is an extremely valuable asset. We respectfully ask that the elected members lead by example. We ask that you support the retention of this tree so it continue to be a part of the amenity and livability of Alexander Heights. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. We now go to reports, item 4, reports. Declarations of interest by council members, including the nature and extent of which the interests are to be made at the commencement of the item to which the interest relates. Declarations of interest forms are to be completed and handed to the Chief Executive Officer. We now go to planning and sustainability. Mr Dixon, would you like to speak to any of your reports?
Good evening, Mayor and elected members. There are 3 reports from the Planning and Sustainability Directorate on tonight's agenda. I'm not proposing to provide a detailed introduction on any of the reports. Item 4.1 is a request from Councillor Smith that an item be included into the Walga North Zone agenda to advocate to the state government for indexation of the community infrastructure cap in relation to developer contribution plans. This has been raised with Council previously in making a submission on the State Planning Policy 3.6. Item 4.2 relates to our ongoing programme of normalising old structure plans to simplify our planning system and reduce complexity. This report relates to the Woodvale Local Structure Plan. And item 4.3 relates to a partial removal of a vehicle access restriction to Kirkstall Drive in Hocking to allow access to the special use zone fronting Wanneroo Road. Mayor, either Mr Bowring or myself would be happy to answer any questions on the three reports.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Do we have any questions on item 4.1? Councillor Bedworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Just on page 25, please. 6.2. Just in reference to what it's saying about that there will be a traffic signals, a four-way traffic signal intersection at the junction of Prindleville Drive and Wanneroo Road. Is there any...
Sorry, Mr Bedworth, we're talking to item 4.1.
Oh,
Councillor
my
Bedworth.
apologies, I thought we were talking about all
yeah,
three.
4.1, that's the
Stand down.
later. Councillor Miles, do you have a question for item 4.1?
Yes, yes, thank you, Mayor. On 4.1, whilst I totally support the idea of having a formula to be able to increase the DPC cap per dwelling, as administration, rather than use CPI, because CPI won't necessarily keep pace of what's going on within the building industry and the community's expectation of what they expect in their buildings. Did administration look at any possibility of adapting the what we use in our rating model and the state government uses on their own metropolitan improvement scheme of a GRV sort of valuation per property to try and lift it up to be more akin to what would be actually happening in the space of building costs?
Mr Dixon.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. No, we haven't given a huge amount of consideration to the options of how indexation occurs. Administration will be open to any suggestion that best aligns the cost increases to what's actually happening in the ground, so it reflects the costs of construction of facilities. I'm happy to take that question on notice and provide a bit more research into the options that are available prior to next week's council meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions on item 4.1? If there are no questions on item 4.1, we now go to 4.2. Councillor Bedworth, would you like to ask your question now?
Thank you, and apologies for that. It's been a very long day. Back to page 25, if we may. 6.2. I'm interested in the aspect of the designing a four-way signal controlled intersection at the junction of Prindleville Drive and Wanneroo Road. Is there any mitigation or contingency in place in regards to this should that those traffic signals not be approved?
Mr Dixon.
Thank you. So just by way of background, the current structure plan, we're not proposing to change that section in the current structure plan that relates to the identification of a four-way access point intersection at the junction of Prindleville Drive and Wanneroo Road. Council elected members will be aware that there is currently traffic signals at that junction. It's just a restriction in terms of the movements out of the estate onto Wanneroo Road. Interestingly, we have liaised with Main Roads quite recently with regard to another proposal, and this junction, nearby, and this junction was raised. I think Main Roads did indicate that they were still happy with the current plans to provide a four-way intersection. If there is any change in that position from Main Roads, at the time of subdivision of the adjacent land, which is still to be developed just to the north, That would be a requirement and opportunity at the subdivision stage to consider what options are available if Main Roads does change its position.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Any other questions on item 4.2? If there are no questions on item 4.2, do I have any questions on item 4.3? Councillor Miles.
Thanks, Mayor. My question to Mr Dixon or Mr Bowring, with the with the changes to this particular zone site and removing this small little piece of land, this is not going to impact on DCP, because I know we've already normalised this area previously, so the DCP is still in place. I guess that's the name of the question. This doesn't affect that at all?
Mr Dixon.
Correct. No, it doesn't impact that at all.
Any other questions on item 4.3? If there are no other questions on item 4.3, we now go to assets. Mr Singh, are there any items on this evening's agenda that you would like to speak to?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We got 4 items on the agenda from Assets Directorate. I would like to introduce item 4.4 and 4.5 very briefly. Item 4.4 is regarding the Black Spot project at Wanneroo Drive and Giravin Avenue intersection. This project was approved under a state Black Spot program 2 years ago. And we undertook the concept designing and further work getting to the detailed design stage. That project then hit some challenges regarding services like ATCO gas and also the other underground services, which required us to redo the cost estimate, which indicated that it won't provide value for money. It actually went above the $3 million threshold for a Black Spot project, for state Black Spot project. And also, it was going to push out the timelines quite severely. So we then looked at another option and come up with another traffic treatment being traffic signals. And I'm pleased to report through this report that we have received approval from Main Roads for traffic signals treatment to be implemented at that intersection. Subsequent to that one, we have also received approval from Main Roads Metropolitan Regional Road Group to extend the time frame for the design and construction of the project, and also the cost variation. So the report outlines the revised schedule and the revised project cost. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions on item 4.5, councillors? 4.4, sorry. Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Mayor, I'll also foreshadow an impartiality interest for next week, as I'm on the board of Girraween Senior High School. Can I ask, the report mentions through the Mayor to Mr Singh, I think it's through resolution number 7, to recommence liaising with the Department of Education to return part of the excise land that's no longer required. There's no time frame mentioned for that, so how soon after the council resolution's adopted will administration begin that process?
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I would expect that in next 3 to 6 months, we'll have the next level of design done for traffic signal intersection. That will determine the exact land take which we need for that new traffic treatment. And at that point, we can actually then go back to a Department of Education and change the land take.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Second question, once again on page 69, to do with the 5th recommendation, requesting that yourself, Mayor, write to the Honourable Rhys Whitby, Minister for Energy. There's also no time frame for that letter. So can I ask, if Council decides next week to approve this recommendation, how quickly will the administration have the letter prepared for the Mayor to sign?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll prepare that as soon as within practically possible. So after the council decision, I would expect that letter to be prepared and sent out a week after.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rowe.
And final question, Mayor, it perhaps might be through yourself more towards the CEO. This is one of those projects that has been advertised in the public domain. It was successful in securing a state government grant, so therefore there was quite a significant amount of anticipation for it. And from 2021, where it was first discussed in more of a conceptual stage to the securing of the grant, there has been that raised expectation, noting now that the design features have meant that a roundabout structure isn't feasible. Nonetheless, expectations have been raised for some time. So does the city have a position on how we're managing these types of projects where we have promoted them, we have released them as part of our public-facing documents, and then sometimes through third-party approvals, we're experiencing significant delays, but the city is inheriting a lot of the reputational risk of not being able to deliver it within the originally intended timeframe?
Mr CEO.
Through the Mayor, and thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. In terms of a formal position, not that I'm aware of, in terms of engaging and managing stakeholders, we've already had a fair bit of interest from the local member, and there has been a fair bit of dialogue, including more the provision of the report, so we can use that avenue to disseminate information. But there certainly is the opportunity through the city's various comms channels, and I know that we perhaps haven't done it the best in the past, but there is a great opportunity to sort of go out and try and, I guess, inform the community of these changes and try and rebalance those expectations so that everyone knows what they're going to get.
Any other questions? Oh, Mr Singh, you wish to respond to that as well?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We have been waiting for this report to come before Council next week. After the Council decision is made, we'll be writing to the adjoining stakeholders like local schools and the other community members in that area, explaining the position, what has changed from the previous roundabout concept to the traffic signals.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Any other questions on this item? If there are no other questions on this item, we go to item 4.5. Are there any questions on item 4.5, councillors?
Mayor, before I get a question, can I just introduce the report very briefly?
Oh, okay. I thought you do. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This petition was received last year at Council, and a report was presented at the briefing session, and also then it was included in the Council members' agenda papers, and Council then made a decision to refer it back to administration for further work. Having said that, there has been previous history on this particular item. There was a previous petition back in 2013, which then led to a Council decision made in 2016 with a management strategy being put in place. So this report captures how management strategy was implemented and what impact that has made. We have provided some stats which are available regarding the implementation of that particular strategy on page 77 and 78. After Council's the decision to refer the report back to administration last year, we did write to the residents in the street and sought their opinion about the PAW and the experiences they had. We had 6 responses back, of which 4 are against the closure and 2 are supportive of the closure. That information is also provided attachment 4 in the report. So the recommendation from this report is that the previous management strategy is still relevant and administration is intending to continue to implement that. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Councillor Herridge, did you have a question on this item? Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, this question is dependent on next week's result. I just wanted to check. The strategy is from 2016. Do we, as a standard practice, update those if required? And can we do so in this instance?
Mr Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's what I outlined just now, that in the report, as part of this report, we have looked at has the strategy been effective or not, and the data suggests that it is working. We haven't had any adverse reports of strategy not being working. So if circumstances do change, it requires any further new management strategy to be implemented, we can consider that.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Councillor Miles, I saw you had your hand up next.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mr Singh, my question was, I think, the same as when this item came before us before. And it's very clear, and we just had a deputation tonight on another particular PAW. As administration, and I asked this before and I don't think I got a response, has administration looked at other methods of security within these PAWs, whether there needs to be a fixed CCTV camera, better lighting in the PAW itself, I know the new POWs up in Banksia Grove actually have the bollard lights that go along those pathways to help with people's antisocial issues. Have we looked at anything like that for these POWs?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. Not for this particular PAW or PAWs of that nature. I think the new developments do have public access ways which are more of landscape portions. They're less of a PAW, it's more of a garden bed and landscape areas which have a footpath going through them. So a slightly different concept. It's a more wider open area. So as part of beautification, lighting is provided. Whereas in these suburbs which were developed a number of years ago, they are standard PAWs with street lighting on both ends, which provide illumination to the PAW.
Thank you. Councillor Miles, do you
I
have
do
another
appreciate
question?
that. That's what we've got, but we've clearly got problems that are within the community. So is it possible for us even to have a couple of bollard lights installed midway or even partly down there, so if they are lighted, they are less likely to have people congregate within them? You might have a light at one end and at the other light at the other end on the streets. There's nothing in the middle, and this particular one is quite a long particular PAW.
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think in response to other questions and also in the report, we did mention that the management strategy has indicated that we do not need to change any measure at this stage, but if council members do wish to, it can be included through council's request next week. But whereas as part of this management strategy, the data also suggesting that we don't need to change anything. So that's where the recommendation is suggesting that we continue to implement the existing management strategy.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Do you have another question, Councillor Miles?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just to finalise that, in your management strategy, and I'm assuming it's your team, Mr Singh, that handles it, or another team, I'm not sure, how is the management strategy working with the antisocial behaviour and other matters that are going on in these PAWs, apart from just saying to the residents, you need to phone the police?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. Our rangers also attend that area. So rangers have not noticed that antisocial activity when they have visited that area.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I suppose one of the issues with management strategies is that sometimes residents may take it upon themselves if they see rubbish or litter there to go and pick it up themselves. So sporadic patrols don't always pick that up. My question through the chair is, how does the management strategy, noting that at this stage there's no recommendation from admin to change it, how does the management strategy for this pedestrian access way align with the increased level of maintenance that that council has asked for streetscapes and for PAWs that were adopted by the council through the streetscapes service review?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. We have not implemented that new streetscape service levels yet. That will certainly improve what we currently do.
Any other questions, Deputy Mayor Rowe?
Just one more, Mayor, and I think it's on the basis that established suburbs have a greater number of pedestrian access ways and drainage sumps. And the number of requests that we get as councillors in those areas to request the closure or increased maintenance of those spaces is significant. Has the city ever considered some form of beautification program for pedestrian access ways or public art, or some form of novel approach that if there are areas that are experiencing significant amount of graffiti or litter, that we're proactively trying to do something that's a bit more out of the norm, like other councils have considered?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. Now that has not been considered other than the standard practice of maintaining and ranger patrols.
Thank you. Councillor Herridge, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is probably across all of the PAWs. It's as a general question. When we have our reports, we get the reports of what we've done maintenance-wise, ranges and what have you. Do we ever look and ask for police attendance?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding is police does not provide data at local level, at street level. The best they can provide data will be at suburb level, so which will not answer the question of this particular site.
Thank you. Councillor Bedworth, you had a question?
Yes, Thank you, Mayor. I suppose it follows on from what Councillor Miles was asking in regards to what future measures can there be for these particular PAWs in regards to crime prevention through environmental design or SEPTED? There are principles out there, I'm sure, that we could look at to try and improve this. Has that been considered?
Mr. Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to request Mr. Barker to respond to that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. The difficulty is that these are very constrained sites, they're long and thin. Certainly improved lighting would help, but they don't have a high degree of passive surveillance, and that is part of the problem.
Thank you. Councillor Miles, you have a question?
Yeah, I guess the question either for Mr. Singh or for the CEO. Management strategies, management orders are usually designed for management to follow. Would the CEO or the director want council to place next week some items within this management strategy, or do you want to take it away and make your own bearing on the questions that's been asked tonight?
Mr. Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We'll look at the questions and if there is any changes required to management strategy, and then I'll let council members know.
You happy with that? Okay, Councillor Herridge.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one last one from me. It just came to me. Is for next week, can we have a breakdown by suburb for the South Ward? Maybe all wards. I know mine have probably got a bit of both. On the old style PAW, so we can have a bit of a guide on what's actually out there.
Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just want to reserve my right to amend this if I need to for next week.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? If there are no other questions on this item, item 4.6, do you want to speak to this item, Mr. Singh?
No, thank you, Mayor. We're happy to take any questions.
Okay, Mr. Singh, I've got a few questions on this one. From what I observe on this request, there hasn't been any community consultation done on this item. Is that correct? It says on page 88, no other external community consultations were done. The petition organiser has been consulted to understand the issues and determine the mitigation measures, and then it says no other external community consultations have been undertaken in relation to this petition. I find that disturbing, having listened to that deputation this evening from that father about his daughter and his family situation, and we have not even gone to the community for community consultation according to the report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Ordinarily, we will contact the petitioner. That's what we've done in this case, and provided what the discussion was and what the mitigation strategy in this case we are proposing is in consultation with the petitioner.
But there hasn't been community consultation done like was done in the previous petition to close the pedestrian access way. So why was there no community consultation done on receipt of this petition?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Ordinarily, that's not the case. Normally, we will talk to the petitioner, understand the issues, and then address that through the report. In the previous case, the council actually deferred the report back to administration for further information. And after the council meeting, I spoke to the proposer and seconder at that time, and their suggestion was to seek feedback from the local community. That's what we did.
I would like to foreshadow a amendment on this. Would any other councillor like to speak to this item 4.6? Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Mayor, on the bottom, second last paragraph of page 88, it says, administration has already replaced the single grab rail with two to restrict access through this pathway. Can I ask when the administration undertook these works? Was it after the petition was received and before the report was brought to council?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it was after the petition was received and before this report coming to council. I don't have the exact date with me, but I can provide that.
Other questions on this item? I'll go to Councillor Smith first because she had her hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just noticed in the deputation, the deputy said if it's not going to be shut, if fencing like over across the road could be implemented. Does that, if you know what that type of fencing is, does that match what you've put in as recommendation 3, which is on page 90, that says replace existing pine post and rail fence with conservation pine rail fencing? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What we've shown on page 93 is our standard drawing. That's the style of fencing which we're proposing at the end of that cul-de-sac.
Any other questions on this item? Councillor Bedworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Just something that's come to me in terms of similar to a nuisance yapping dog. These sorts of events, from what I'm reading and in my experience, don't just happen overnight and things start building up and building up. Do we offer the similar sort of log/diary of antisocial events for these occupants to assist with sort of like the evidence behind it?
Mr Singh.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think we provide that. This is just based on what the petitioners have mentioned that in the petition or in conversation with us.
Thank you. You have another, Councillor Miles.
Thank you. Two questions. First one is there a management strategy for this site as yet?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. That's what we're proposing in this one to, obviously one action has been implemented that is providing additional grab rails and also providing conservation fencing that is subject to council decision.
Councillor Miles.
Second part of the question, follow on from Councillor Bedworth, is has Ranger Services had any calls to this site at all?
Mr Singh.
Yes, they have received calls and they have been doing additional visits to that area.
Any other questions? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, just to follow on. So have we got where the question was asked about a log? So we have got some log data that administration can use to know what's been going on within the area, I'm assuming through Ranger Services.
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We can try to source that data if that's available. We can then provide that to council members.
Councillor Coetzee.
Sorry if I've missed it somewhere, but do we have any data of saying how many pedestrians or people are using that PAW daily?
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. No, we don't have pedestrian count for that particular accessway. Just for a clarification, the report does say it is not actually public accessway, it is a footpath connection from one cul-de-sac to Mirrabooka Avenue. So this is slightly different terminology. The petition title has remained the same as presented by the petitioner. So it's a footpath network from the end of cul-de-sac coming back to Mirrabooka Avenue.
Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Therefore, just to clarify with the admin, measures to restrict access on this site wouldn't require the acquisition of land like is normally the case with other pedestrian accessways. This would just be simply installing a fence structure that prevents people from being able to get out of the cul-de-sac onto the main road.
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a clarification again, the conservation fencing is proposed to be installed on either side of the footpath. Footpath will still remain open under this proposal. Yes, it's not if council chooses to close that footpath, it doesn't need to go through the formal PAW closure process. It will be simple council decision.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask, in the administration's discussions with the petitioners, did any mention of any of the incidents that were reported to police come up at all?
Mr Singh.
Yeah. Yes, Mayor. Yeah, they were mentioned.
Councillor Smith.
I'm just a little bit confused why that wasn't really covered in the report. That's a little bit disturbing to me.
Mr Singh?
Thank you, Mayor. I do understand the deputation has been provided. We try to keep the report. We don't provide general information regarding a particular resident in the report as such. So the report's been kept at that level where we indicate that we have conversation with the petitioner without mentioning what actions they have taken going to place or not.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I ask if we could have some photographs, some up-to-date photographs before next week's meeting? That would be, I think, very...
Mr Singh?
Yes, Mayor, we can provide that.
Councillor Berry?
Thank you, Mayor. Do administration expect that the same problems could occur in the other 4 streets that then, if you look at page 92, there's 4 other streets that have the same sort of footpath to connect to Mirrabooka Avenue? Are we going to be able to do the same fencing to give all those streets security or better security measures? Or do the other streets get problems currently? Thank you.
Mr Singh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. No, we are not aware of any other issues for other 3 cul-de-sacs. So this report is just dealing with this one particular one.
Any other questions on this item, councillors? If there are no other questions on this item, we now go to item 4.7, applications for funding Metropolitan Regional Roads Program 25-26. Would you like to speak to this, Mr Singh?
No, Mayor, happy to take questions.
Do I have any questions on this item? If there are no questions on this item, we now go to Community in Place. Thank you, Mr Singh. Mr Clem, are there any items you'd like to speak to that you have on tonight's agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. There's 5 reports on tonight's agenda from Community in Place. All of these matters have been before council in some form prior to tonight's briefing report, so I won't introduce any items, Mayor, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Clem. Councillors, do I have any questions on item 4.8, revised spelling of the Noongar name for the new Library and Youth Innovation Hub in Lansdale? If there are no questions on that, I go to item 4.9, the Alkimos Open Spaces Master Plan. Do I have any questions on that item? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions on this particular item. I just need to go to it. My first question is, obviously, through the letters that administration has received from Mr Caddy with regard to handing over the land to the city, I think there's 2 titled blocks that they were talking about in the letters. Can you, is there a reason why administration wouldn't ask for that land to be already serviced, environmentally cleared, Aboriginal heritage cleared? Why would we accept it until it's done all that work through the department, which has a lot better access to the detail required?
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Miles. We can certainly request financial support or project assistance from the state government, but at this stage they would consider the city to be the proponent of that development, and their role simply be to reserve and acquire the land for that purpose.
Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thanks. Whilst I appreciate that's where we're at, I guess what I'm asking as a councillor is what have we done to request all of that work to be done before handover? This is not an urgent matter. We don't need to accept this in this month because we can't use the land for several years. So why would we not request the state government through the Department of Planning, who purchased this land, to actually undergo all of that work, so when they hand it over to us, it's unencumbered in any way?
Mr Stewarts.
Thank you, Mayor. At this stage, we don't the report's recommending that council considers the master plan for that site, noting recommendation 3 that the project does form one of the city's top advocacy priorities. I think should council endorse the master plan, one of the next stages would be to engage with project stakeholders, and part of that engagement could be to discuss the department's involvement in the planning and development of that site.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I have several. Well, if we can take that on board, because I think, if in all honesty, if the state wants to do the right thing, they would give us land that's unencumbered. My concern, and I'll let council know, is that whilst I know that site reasonably well, there could be some environmental issues or Aboriginal heritage that we're not aware of, and we could lose a substantial amount of that land that we can't use for playing fields, which is what we're looking at. But going on to the actual open space, on page 108, obviously there is identified a substantial amount of sports, whether it be district centre, tennis clubs and the like, croquet. There's a lot of items that have to be placed within that space, and I think administration's got an estimate of about $120 million in total. Bearing in mind that council's been requesting some more firmer pricing, if we was to be given $120 million tomorrow, would you be able to do all what you're saying in this master plan? Would you be able to complete all that for $120 million?
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. The costings provided are based on some very high-level concept designs, which is all we've had done under the master plan so far. As we go through further iterations of the design process, then costings would be fine-tuned through that process.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I am concerned, obviously, and I think most councillors are, because of some of our cost estimates in the past are nowhere near what we actually end up with. And that's why I look at these cost estimates and I do think that they're probably a $50 or $60 million light, just on what we're currently doing around our own district. So I'm just wondering whether administration should maybe review some of those costings before we go any further down the line here and commit our residents to a substantial amount of funding required, either through grants from federal or state or through municipal funding.
Mr Clem.
Through you, Mayor, yes, we could ask the consultants, I guess, to revisit those costings to see if anything's changed from their perspective in regards to those costings. The concept designs that have been come up through the master plan have been based on our needs assessment and our understanding, our consultation with the state sporting associations and our understanding of what the community needs based on other amenities that are provided in the general area. So whilst we could get, I guess, refinement of the costings, it would be based on these high-level concept designs at this stage, and any further more accurate assessments would require some more detailed designs through that process.
Any other questions on this item? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And thank you if you can do that. I'm just wondering whether or not you can do that before council starts making some firmer decisions on this item going forward. We know we're going to build a recreation centre there, or a district centre. We know that, but I think we need to have a better understanding of what we're actually committing our residents to.
Mr Clem.
Thanks, Mayor. We can certainly reach out to the consultants and see what they're able to provide prior to OCM next week. I guess we would just caution that we're still at very, very high level estimate staging in terms of the pricing of all the elements of both the regional open space and the district open space. So the accuracy of those figures would be pretty broad still at this stage and refined through the design process.
Thank you, Mr Clem.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. We don't need within 10%. I mean, I think within 25, 30% is pretty accurate. I just don't see what we have before us any of that reflection. And I think, you know, we've gone through some very large projects over the last few months, and we've all sort of been very taxed on budgeting and requirements to that. And I would rather see us see what those, at least to a real point of cost, as opposed to a guesstimate that was done maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I don't know where these costs come from, but they're definitely not today's pricing. Bearing in mind in 20 years' time, when this is totally built out, the costs are probably going to be $100 million more. With the recommendation, though, you are asking us as a council to endorse the Open Space Master Plan report, which obviously does have costings in. So how would you expect council to endorse it when we know those costings are not correct?
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think any costings provided in an original master plan concept, I think it's acknowledged that they are not an accurate reflection of what the actual costs will be in the end. They are, I guess, a best estimate based on the high-level concept designs that are provided at this point in time. And you know, there are further opportunities through the detailed design process for council to consider updated costings as that project progresses.
Thank you. Councillor Figg, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering, with the inclusion of hard courts in the Alkimos Aquatic and Recreation Centre, does that affect the number of proposed hard courts for the Alkimos District Open Space in this case?
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. No, the needs analysis and what's been provided in this concept design is in consideration of what is included at Alkimos Aquatic and Rec Centre.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Nguyen.
Just like to foreshadow an impartiality interest in relation to this item for next week.
Thank you.
Want me to tell you the nature of the interest, or?
Yeah. Yes, you can read the interest out if you want to.
I acted for a tenant in relation to a lease for the property of 12 Rayhold Place, Carabooda, which is part of the parcel of land to the subject of the open space.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Councillor Nguyen? Any other questions on this item? If there are no other questions on this item, we go to item 4.10, which is Wanneroo Raceway Master Plan Update. Do we have any questions on this item? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed in the report in regards to consultation with the BMX group that they're happy to kind of not be included. What I was struck by was a comment that a lot of the group actually inhabits Ellenbrook. And I just looked up what BMX facilities are provided in Ellenbrook, and I know that as of February 2024, a new BMX track is being built there. So I was just wondering, does administration have any concern that we will be left without a facility and a group that is currently using a facility in our area will then move to Ellenbrook?
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. Over several years, we went through a long process with the Wanneroo BMX Club regarding a potential alternative location to their current site. Through that time, they remained quite firm in terms of wanting to stay at their current location, and subsequently a lease has been provided for them for some period of time, not exactly sure of the term, but some period of time to enable them to do that. They've demonstrated through that process that they are quite a successful club with some good succession planning, so I don't think the City has any concerns at this stage regarding that.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. On another note, I was just wondering, because I know that the Perth Soapbox Club also uses Carco area as well, but I didn't notice them being consulted at all as groups listed. Is there any reason why, or have we ever thought of reaching out to them as well?
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that the Soapbox Club, and perhaps Mr Greer might be able to help me out with that, but I believe the Soapbox Club are included under the lease of the WA Sporting Car Club, so perhaps they were consulted through the WA Sporting Car Club as a tenant.
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. To add to that question, they don't have a direct lease with the city, the Soapbox Club. They're actually a user that hires from WA Sporting Car Club, which is the main lessee of the site. So the city has no contractual relationship with the Soapbox Club. As I understand it, they don't even have a sublease. It's all managed under the auspices, pardon me, of Sporting Car. So any consultation with users under Sporting Car would have occurred through them in the same way any other hirers, bookers and so on would have been consulted through Sporting Car.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just one last one. I was just surprised that in the recommendation it wasn't included that there was a point that was in the report that should it be passed that an advocacy plan or campaign would be created. So I was just wondering if that was missed from the recommendations.
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. The Wanneroo Raceway, if I understand correctly, is captured within the other projects, but not one of the top 25 projects of the advocacy plan. So certainly at a point in time, through further discussions with the state government, potentially an advocacy plan could be developed, and perhaps when the city's advocacy strategy comes back to council for consideration, that could be addressed at that point in time.
Councillor Smith.
Sorry, just to follow up. So just on page 161, it just seems a little bit firmer to me. It says, accordingly, it is proposed that administration prepare an advocacy campaign for the development of the raceway should the master plan be endorsed by council. So I think your answer was a little bit less committed in response to that.
Mr Clem.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, certainly we can develop that advocacy paper. And the fact sheet for council's approval. And if that's something you'd like to see in the recommendation, we can make that change for next week.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I'll reserve my right to make that amendment. Thank you.
Mr Clem, can I just ask you on item 1, it says on the recommendation, it says endorses the draft master concept as provided in attachment as the guiding document for future advocacy and development. So advocacy is discussed in item 1 of the recommendation. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor. Can I just get you to repeat the question so I'm sure I'm answering what you're asking?
Item 1 says of the recommendation says endorses the draft master plan concept as provided in attachment 1 as the guiding document for future advocacy and development of the Wanneroo Raceway. So advocacy is included. Is that not in that recommendation in item 1?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, that's correct. Obviously that recommendation 1 does include that the guiding document, which is the concept plan, would be used as part of future advocacy.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure whether administration's got their recommendations correct at all, because I read item 3, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to write to the state government requesting that they take the lead role in progressing an improvement of the Wanneroo Racer as part of the implementation of the overarching WA motorsport strategy. So why would we be doing a policy of advocacy when we're asking our CEO to write to the state government for them to take it over because it is a state project?
Mr Clem.
Well, I think in this case the phrase advocacy means to speak to the state government about them taking over the project.
Councillor Miles, do you have another question?
Sorry, okay, so that makes a little bit more sense. So by saying endorse is a document for future advocacy and development, all we're really saying there is we're going to ask the CEO to write a letter and ask the state to take the project over, which is the right and proper way to deal with it. Is that what you're saying in the recommendation?
Mr Clem?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, that's how I see recommendation 1 and 3 tying together.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? If there are no other questions on this item, we go to item 411, the Wanneroo Recreation Centre Sports Hub consultation outcomes. Would you like to speak to this at all, Mr Clem?
No, thank you, Mayor. This item has been discussed with Council previously, so I think there's no need to introduce it.
Any questions on this item, councillors? If there are no questions on this item, we go to item 4.12, which is the Bushfire Brigade Local Law 2024. Do I have any questions on this item? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. I did read this item late this afternoon. I've just, in regard, and I've got to use my scrolling key because the hyperlink's not working, page 180. My question is, administration are looking at removing where was it exactly? So you're looking at removing, I think it was 5, where we were saying that an elected person, oh, you've got it as well? Yeah, 5.29, we're actually going to take that out of the actual standing orders or out of the document. How's that going to fare with delegated legislation?
Mr Clem.
I might have to take that one on notice, Mayor, and I can provide a response prior to next week's OCM.
Councillor Miles, can I clarify what page of the agenda is that on?
It's page 181, and the submission was received from the Wanneroo Fire Service Executive Management Group, and they do talk about brigade member. So administration did get some legal advice, I think, around that. But what I want to know is how that's going to interact with delegated legislation, bearing in mind that this has been there before and they knocked it back to us because it was not what was advertised when we made the changes. So I am concerned that we're removing a section from the actual, I guess it is like a bylaw, without possible consultation, that we're removing it.
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. So we did seek legal advice on this, and their advice regarding the proposed amendment was to remove that clause in its entirety, and that wouldn't be an issue because other legislation, as it says, other legislation such as the Work Health and Safety Act and the Corruption, Crime and Misconduct 2003 Act address issues of liability. So, in fact, the removal of this clause also ensures that the local law does not contradict or conflict with any other act or law.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thanks. I'm aware of that. The other part of that particular issue was raised by, as it says in the briefing, by the emergency group themselves. Have they been consulted about removing that item from the bylaw?
Mr Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, they have, and they're okay with that change.
Councillors, any other questions on this item? If there are no more questions on this item, we now go to corporate strategy and performance. Ms Jennings, would you like to speak to any items on the reports this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 5 items this evening, 3 of which have already been in front of council members. So I actually don't have anything to present. Happy to take questions and have some managers with me as well.
Thank you, Ms Jennings. Do I have any questions on item 4.13, the Youth Services Review? If there are no questions on that item, councillors, do I have any questions on item 4.14, the Transactional Finance? If there are no questions on item 4.14, do I have any questions on 4.15, the proposed lease to Quinns Rocks Sports Club Incorporated over a portion of Gumblossom Park, 17 Tapping Way, Quinns Rocks? If there are no questions, do I have any questions over item 4.16, the Light Vehicle Fleet Policy? If there are no questions to item 4.16, do I have any questions to item 4.17, the Donations Policy Review? Councillor Herridge.
Thank you. I had to give you a 1 at least. It's not actually about the policy. I think the policy is actually awesome. Just wanted to check, do we actually use and expend all of the funds that we allocate each year?
Ms Jennings.
Through the chair, it actually varies each year. So sometimes we've had to top it up, sometimes not so much. So but roughly speaking, we do use it on average.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? If there are no questions on this item, we go to the Office of the Chief Executive Office. Mr CEO, would you like to speak to any of the items on your reports this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. There's 4 items under the Office of the CEO. The first one being the sponsorship agreement with the Wanneroo Agricultural Society, and I'm very fortunate to have Jackie Cullen here tonight to support with any detailed questions. And once we've been through that report, there may be some detail that Ms Coles wants to add regarding the Strategic Risk Register adoption extension of review dates for council policies and the Risk Management Framework review. And I also note that 2 of those items have recently been through the forum process. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, Councillor Huntley has a declaration. Councillor Huntley, would you like to make your declaration?
Yeah, just to foreshadow a declaration for next week, as I'm one of the councillors serving on that committee.
Is that the Agricultural Society?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Huntley. Do I have any questions on item 4.18? Councillor Miles.
I do have a question. I need to check it out. My hyperlinks are not working tonight, so I'm having to do it all manually. No, my question was on yeah, 4.18. In light of what was asked by the president of the society, can I just have some clarification on what was actually being asked of her on behalf of the society and what administration's maybe possible change that is coming about?
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Ms Callan, would you like to respond to that?
Through the chair, Dot was referring to the number of marquees, excuse me, that would be made available for the city to promote their services. Typically, we've had waste services and ranger services, and on a couple of occasions, advocacy and economic development hold a presence at the show, and that line was referring to having perhaps 2 or 3 marquees of a similar nature in the next 3 shows over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. So from your understanding that we're not actually changing anything, it's just that Ms Newton actually mentioned I think up to 6 or 4 or whatever. It seemed a bit of a difference. I understand what we've done in the past, but I was trying to understand where she was heading from the new contract.
Ms Callan.
Through the chair, That's correct. There's no intention for us, for the city to change the number of marquees that we will have there. There wouldn't ever really be more than 3 because those community-facing services where we would hold marquees, we just don't have more than that, even if we wanted to. But we're certainly happy to quantify that in the final agreement.
Any other questions on this item? If there are no other questions on this item, we now go to item 419, the Strategic Risk Register update. Do I have any questions on the Strategic Risk Register update? If there are no questions on that item, we now go to item 420, adoption and extension of review dates of council policies. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is in regards to the facilities use hire one. It refers to a workshop with councillors, but no specific time frame, whereas some of the other ones do. I was wondering if admin has an estimated time for that one. Thank you.
Mr. Clem.
Thank you, Mayor. No, those dates haven't been finalised yet, but we do intend to do that before the end of 2024. So certainly this year, with the revised date of the policy being, I think we put April next year, and then that would allow us to apply anything that impacts on fees and charges, allow us to apply that in advance of the adoption of budget and fees and charges for the following financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So just to clarify, it hasn't been set because you're still needing to prepare a whole lot of information for that workshop. Is that correct?
Mr. Clem.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, that's correct. We're still getting that research and that information together for that workshop.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Exactly the same one, Mayor. The facilities hire and use policy, it refers to there being a number of complex issues that need to be resolved. At this stage, is the administration able to advise what types of issues that is, given that that is the reason that we're being asked to extend this policy? Are we allowed to know what types of issues actually require to be resolved?
Mr. Clem.
Thanks, Mayor. A lot of it's to do with the level of concessions that are provided within the policy and I guess the relationships between those concessions and the ability to, or whether there's ability to consolidate those into something that's simpler for administration to administer in terms of that policy. There are other factors such as the relationship with the city's leasing policy as well, given some community facilities are under lease agreements. So that's another contributing factor to what's causing those issues.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Councillor Herridge.
Thanks, Mayor. Just 2 from me. I just wanted to check, where are we with the Waste Management Services Policy number 5? It states that we've got the city's waste plan review underway.
Mr. Singh.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This policy has, we're requesting that to be extended so that we can consider the need of this policy and if it's needed, what should be in the policy in conjunction with the waste plan review. Council actually decided last month to bring forward the waste plan review to the end of 2024. So we'll do 2 in conjunction with each other.
Thank you. Councillor Herridge.
Yep, and one last one. Sorry to harp on about the facilities hire and use policy, but I did remember that we actually have already had this past us. And we recently actually lost the item. And on that same item that we discussed, there was the legal representation, which we've done, but there's also the strategic land policy. Is that coming back before us as well?
Miss Jennings.
Sorry, Mayor, that one isn't due just at the moment. I can't see it on this list, but we are just following when it's regularly required to be reviewed, that particular policy.
Ms Coles has something to say.
The legal representation policy has been through forum and that will be coming to council next month.
Any other questions on this item? If there are no further questions on this item, we go to item 4.21, Risk Management Framework Review. Are there any questions on that item? If there are no questions on that item, we now go to item 5.1, Motion to Revoke Council Resolution ASO 50424. Are there any questions about this? Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Mayor, I have many questions, so it's up to you if you'd prefer me to ask them in blocks of 3 or just keep going, whatever you think. I'm happy to do so.
Blocks of 3, and then we'll check if anyone else has got a question.
Okay. First off, Councillor Seif, who's unable to be here, has also sent me a couple of questions as well. So I'm asking them on her behalf as the other ward councillor. And to preface it, I think it's to try and establish the facts and the process of this new information that's been brought to our attention. Can I first clarify with the administration that there was 37 days between the council resolution on the 23rd of April to remove and replace one tree and the receipt of the revocation motion on 30th of May. So essentially those dates. The 23rd of April was when council decided. The 30th of May is the date on which the revocation was received, 37 days afterwards.
Mr Singh?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Those are the dates are correct.
Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Second question. Did Council's 5-part resolution on the 23rd of April request the administration to inspect the driveway for invasive roots and repair the damage? If so, where in the 5-part resolution was this action requested?
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It was not in the council resolution. However, it was raised during the briefing or council meeting, and administration responded that we will inspect and undertake repairs if required.
Deputy Mayor Rowe.
So just to confirm that it doesn't require a council resolution to authorise this action, it can be carried out as part of operational procedure.
Mr Singh.
Yes, Mayor, if we feel that if inspection results in that it does require repair, we will undertake repairs.
Deputy Mayor Rowe. Okay, Councillor Berry.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I've got a question following on from Deputy Mayor Rowe's question. Why would we undertake works and do the works to the driveway if we were going to be pulling up the tree a week later? Thank you.
Mr Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As I said earlier, the petitioner during her deputation and also during her comments at the council meeting raised that the paving requires attention. I'm not quoting the exact words, but along those lines. So we contacted the petitioner the day after the briefing session, and arrangement was made to meet with her, depending upon her availability, on 26th of April. And when we attended the site, we identified minor repairs were required, and we undertook those repairs.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Councillor Berry.
Thank you. I understand the answer, Mr Singh, but surely if we were then going to go and take out the whole tree, we would have done a lot more damage to the drive, and it would have made more sense to have done all the work in one go. So I still can't understand why we would have gone and done minor works, knowing a week later we would have had those minor works undone to remove said tree and then had to redo it.
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. At that stage, we hadn't worked out the exact date of when tree will be removed, but I'm going to request Mr. Chettelberger, Manager Parks and Conservation Management, to provide a bit more context.
Mr Chettelberg.
Through you, Mayor, the process to remove the tree wouldn't have caused disruption to the driveway. So the tree number 1 that was subject to the recommendation from council to remove is situated on the western side of the driveway. So the tree removal process itself and the removal or the grinding of the stump wouldn't have disrupted the driveway. The minor damage to 2 sections of the driveway wouldn't have been impacted by the tree removal.
Thank you. Councillor Bedworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Then through you, is the Angophora costata an approved species of tree within the city?
Mr Singh. Oh, Mr Chettelberg.
Through you, Mayor, the city still has the Angophora on its planting list and does still plant Angophoras on verges that are deemed suitable.
Deputy Mayor Rowe.
I'm just going to ask if this information is also correct, that a petition was received by Narellan Houlihan, the property owner, on the 10th of December, tabled at council on the 20th of December and brought before the ordinary council meeting on the 23rd of April. Therefore, 135 days elapsed from when the petition was received by the city and then council's decision was to remove and replace one tree. Are those dates correct, being received on the 10th, tabled at the ordinary council meeting on the 20th of February and then presented and voted on at the 23rd of April?
Mr Singh.
Yes, Mayor, those dates are correct.
Deputy Mayor Rowe.
I understand that Ms Houlihan did not raise in subsequent inquiries with the City of Wanneroo the impact of the driveway damage. However, to my understanding, her petition received on the 10th of December mentioned in writing, and I quote, "The tree roots grow in such a way as to disrupt brick paving on driveways, which then need repair. There is significant expense associated with managing this problem. Is it correct then that the administration first became aware of the trees potentially damaging the driveway pavement on the 10th of December rather than at the briefing session in April of 2024?
Mr Chettleberg.
Through you, Mayor, correct. The city, once we received the petition from Ms Houlihan in December, we engaged the city's consulting arborist who, after the Christmas break, went out and undertook a quantified tree risk assessment of the 3 trees. This included an inspection of the surrounding infrastructure. The comments back from the consulting arborist for tree 1 said the tree appears root firm at the time of inspection and no root heave, soil displacement or damage to the surrounding infrastructure was observed.
Thank you. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Rowe.
So the arborist that went out after the petition was received did not observe or document any damage to the driveway, but the city's subsequent efforts to go out and look at that after the council meeting did observe that structural damage to the driveway. Is that correct, that there's disparity between what the arborist came back with after the petition was received and what the city's officers observed after the council meeting?
Mr Chettleberg.
Through you, Mayor, at the time of the inspection from the consulting arborist around the 16th of January, as I stated before, there was they didn't observe any lifted paving. After Ms Houlihan raised at briefing that there was some damage to the driveway, members of administration made contact with her. We went to site at an agreed time with her and identified 2 locations within the driveway of approximately half a square metre with some raised paving, some minor raised paving.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you. With that information we've just received in mind, if the first report had no damage to the driveway, then within a matter of weeks, the second observation was there was damage to the driveway. If that tree now does indeed stay on that property, can we expect further damage to the driveway? And are council forevermore going to repair that driveway, setting a precedent with other driveways? Thank you.
Mr Chettleberg.
Through you, Mayor, it's quite possible with the nature of the roots found that we will see some further movement within the driveway itself. The city has around 100 requests per year from residents to do similar type repairs on driveways and crossovers due to small roots of the same sorts of nature that we've seen within this driveway.
Any other questions on this item? Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Does the administration acknowledge that reason 1 of the revocation, the new information, came about not because of the council resolution, but because of the actions that administration took after the council meeting on the 23rd of April?
Mr Singh.
Mayor, I just want to need a little bit of clarification in that sense. that we did provide, or I can try to explain that as well. We did send information out to council members on the progress made on the tree removal process, which was underway, as a result of the second petition, which was received at the May council meeting, which kind of requested council to not remove the tree.
Deputy Mayor Rowe, do you have another question?
I do, Mayor. One that Councillor Seif has asked me to say on her behalf. We had a meeting with Mr Singh and Mr Shedelborough today, and Councillor Seif has just asked if the information that she requested around tree audits, particularly in the suburb of Mindari, with that specific issue that was occurring there, if that information could be provided to her prior to voting on the matter next week.
Mr Singh?
Yes, Mayor, that question relates to the tree audit which we undertook in the suburb of Mindari. Councillor Seif has requested a copy of that tree audit, which we can provide to council members. We'll likely upload that on the hub.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be possible for administration to request from the person's house if they had any photos of the driveway in December, and if there was any photos that we could compare from April to see if there was much of a change, because I'm just concerned that with the disparity, if there wasn't a large amount of new growth, that maybe if we've hired that same contractor before, other assessments might need to be reassessed.
Mr Shedelberg?
Through you, Mayor, we can certainly make contact with Ms Houlihan and request if she has any photos.
Deputy Mayor Rowe?
I'm working my way through them. So there, the revocation was received on the 30th of May, and I did email the CEO and Ms Coles to ask if I could discuss the nature of what I'm about to. Did the administration send councillors an email on Monday the 27th of May advising them of the driveway repair works?
Mr Singh?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We did provide an email to council members in that week. I don't have a copy of the email with me at this point in time, where we outlined the council's decision of April, the further petition received in May, and the progress made to that point in the tree removal process.
Deputy Mayor Rowe?
As part of that email, it provided a summary to council members, and I have clarified, by the way, that the contents were not confidential. So I have clarified that ahead of time. It provided an update on the actions that had been taken by the administration, and it included the phrase, administration has continued to action the tree removal process as per the decisions made on the 23rd of April as summarised below. 3 of the items referred to the tree removal process, but the first 2 referred to the repairs to the driveway. What I'm struggling with, Mayor, is that it said that those processes occurred as per the decision made on the 23rd of April, and to the best of my knowledge, that was not, and I think it's been confirmed tonight, those driveway repair works were not included in Council's resolution. They were undertaken independently as under the discretion of what the administration has already confirmed they can do.
Mr Singh?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As I said, we provided council members with the update about the tree removal process, and we considered, giving consideration to what the Deputy Mayor has said, is what was discussed at the council meeting, the action taken as a result of those discussions was also included in that email.
Deputy Mayor Rowe?
I think I've only got 2 more questions. Also from the email on the 27th of May, it said, and I quote, in the absence of a council decision or receipt of a motion to revoke the council decision made on the 23rd of April, accepted in accordance with clause 6.16 of the city's standing orders. And it goes on to talk about what would happen as a result. Can the administration recollect another occasion, any other occasion, where they have provided an email to council that has reminded them of their capacity to undertake a revocation motion?
Mr CEO?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. I'm certainly, having not been here for an overly long period of time. However, I am very satisfied with the contents of the email, and I think what the point that I want to get across here is that a petition was received by council, and we wanted to make it very clear from an administrative perspective that just because we received a petition did not stop the council decision. So we didn't want any councillor, when this petition came back to council for an update, as we have to say, I'm sorry, we've already removed the tree, and for there to be confusion around the table about why that happened. So we just wanted to make it very clear about what the process was, and in the absence of any revocation motion, that the council decision from that date stood. So it's about being open and transparent and everyone understanding the decision-making process.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Therefore, will this be the new process going forward? And if so, what threshold needs to be met? Is it the receipt of a counter petition? Is it when an item generates significant attention in the community, where there's been deputations from residents? I'm trying to find out if this is the new process where councillors are advised particularly and specifically about the revocation motion. I would like to know, one, what's the new process going forward? And two, if it will be applied consistently from here on in, because I've never seen this before.
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Again, look, I guess from my perspective, it's about openness and transparency. I don't have a set procedure that I'm working to. However, I do take my guidance from the Local Government Act and the requirements of a CEO, and the requirements of a CEO is to provide information to council for informed decisions to be made, and I feel as though the actions that the administration has taken are consistent with that section of the Act.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the comment, CEO. I guess in light of that, when council makes a specific, when council moves a specific item, whether it's done on a notice of motion and or administration's notice through yourself, I would have thought that once that decision has been made by council, that's pretty much the end of the process, unless a councillor deems that they have discovered new information or whatever they deem that there needs to be something brought up, and then they obviously consult legal and do a revocation motion. What I'm alarmed at here is the fact that administration put out an email basically saying, the way I read it was, look, we think we've fixed the problem. You should, leave the tree in place. Your advice to us, can be rescinded and place the line item in the actual memorandum. That's how I'm reading it. It may not have been meant that way. I don't know what other councillors believe, but I guess moving on from a question point of view, the Deputy Mayor asked, is this going to be a new standard that with every briefing note we get, that we can then rescind under a certain section, because it's only so many days, any item that we're going to get a briefing note on?
Mr CEO.
Going back again to the comment that I made earlier, it's about being open and transparent and the options being in front of the elected group. Is there a threshold or a test that will apply in every single situation? I don't think there is one. I think it's about using your discretion to try and make sure that the elected members are fully informed. Now, if you're asking me, is openness and transparency part of my style, then the answer is yes. And so will that then continue into how I communicate with elected members moving forward? Then the answer is yes. But if you're asking me for a really rigid process about each and every instance that I'll be open and transparent with council, that's a really difficult question to answer, because it's about understanding the context of each situation, the risks associated with those situations, and the information that I think is important to council through that decision-making process.
Councillor Miles.
Just finally on this point to the CEO, because you've used open and transparency a couple of times as a guiding comment. And council should always be open, accountable, and we all agree with that. But on this occasion, for the first time ever that I've seen, administration's implied that maybe the decision we made was wrong, and this is the process to undo it. Is that what you're making clear to council?
Mr CEO.
That is absolutely not what I'm making clear to council. Make no mistake, I've been doing this for a very long time, over 20 years as a CEO. Once council makes the decision, you make a decision and the organisation backs that 100%. And I know all of the officers in the room do exactly the same thing. This was not an attempt by the administration. I don't want anyone to question the integrity of the administration in terms of trying to circumvent a council decision. It was about not coming back into this council chamber in a couple of months' time when we have to present the petition and saying, oh, and by the way, we removed the tree a couple of months ago, and there being elected members sitting around the table saying, but we received a petition. Like, CEO, why did you go and remove the tree? We weren't informed. Why did you withhold that information from us? And it's about not withholding that information. It's about the elected members being fully informed. Now, whether the decision stands in a couple of weeks' time or next week, we'll wait and see. If the decision changes, the decision changes. Whatever the decision of council is, we will implement. No questions asked.
Councillor Herridge.
Thanks, Mayor. Just in light of the conversation, my interpretation of the email, which is the way that I'm assuming it was written, was that the information that was given in and about the revocation was because there was a revocation on the table in a petition. I've never seen anything like it before, and I don't think we'd ever see it again. So the integrity of our council is second to none, I believe. And the only way that I read it, when I did read it, was that the information that was provided to us in the email was because there was already something on the table, and that was actually put together to ensure that everybody knew exactly what was there. So that's my understanding, is that more or less what was actually occurring.
Any other questions on this item? Deputy Mayor Rowe.
I'm just going to keep pressing it because I did, and then I think Councillor Miles did as well, and I'm going to ask again. I know the CEO just said that there's the discretion that needs to be applied to individual cases, but I need to ask the hypothetical. If a council makes a decision in the future and a counter petition is received, would you suggest that that meets the threshold to remind individual councillors of their powers under the Act and the standing orders to move to revoke that decision?
Mr CEO.
Yes, if the petition specifically referred to revoking a council decision, then absolutely. And look, it'd be interesting to ask other councillors within the room in receipt of the petition who thought that the administration would halt all action until council considered the decision later. And I don't want there to be any confusion around the role of the administration implementing council decisions.
I'll go Councillor Herridge first, then Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Thanks, Mayor. I didn't get an answer to my question.
Sorry, Councillor Herridge. I believe that Councillor Rowe might have jumped in and asked a question on top of yours. Can you please repeat your question so I can answer it this time?
It was basically just saying I interpreted it the way that we were given the information because it was in a petition. It wasn't provided extra.
That is correct. The wording of, I guess, revocation, wanting council to revoke its decision within the petition, I think was an important factor.
Deputy Mayor Rowe.
Just another point of clarification. When council decided this at the April meeting, can I confirm that one deputation was received from Narelle and Houlihan and that several public statements were received the following week at the OCM when the matter was considered by council, and those were the residents of Cordelia Place?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. That's my recollection. I think it was the petitioner herself and the 2 or 3 residents from the same street. They also, I don't think they presented, but they were with her that evening.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, on the night when the amendment was made, we actually had no consultation as to that amendment, apart from when we first saw it on that night, having to make a decision. And I do feel that there was pressure to make that compromise, which it was, and the loss of this tree is massive.
What's the question, Councillor Huntley? It's not
So
debate time.
the question is, because the amendment was made and there was no time really to thoroughly discuss options, I have to ask, that a ratification was bound to be on the table, and I must say I was searching for one as well.
Councillor Huntley,
So
that's not a question.
My question is, when these short decisions are made, how I think Councillor Rowe is trying to make a point that policy wasn't followed here. Am I correct in?
Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't fully understand the question, what the real question is.
Can I just clarify, was that an alternative, not an amendment? So therefore it was an alternative, and the substantive was actually lost before the alternative came. So the substantive was lost. So Councillor Huntley, it wasn't an amendment. Is that correct, Mr. Singh?
Yes, Mayor, that is correct.
Deputy Mayor Rowe, did you have another question? Any other questions on this item? If there are no other questions on this item, we go to item 6, late reports to be circulated under separate cover. 6.1, Councillor Miles has a facilities and sites for horse-related activities, and that will be published in the council agenda papers. Item 6.2, Councillor Berry has funding for the Quinns Rocks Youth Emergency Services cadets. That will be published in the council agenda papers. Councillor Smith, did you have a question?
Just to see, because it's rare that we actually get a report on motions on notice, so I just wanted to know if we were going to give the opportunity if anyone had any questions on it.
Well, we don't have the motion yet to read. Oh, you've got them here, have you? Oh, they came earlier. They're in my green folder. Has everyone had time to read them? Because I haven't. I think we'll leave the questions to the ordinary council meeting so that councillors have time to read them and digest them. I think that would be fair because they've only just been given it to us this evening. So the questions can be asked at the ordinary council meeting. We now go on to item 7, public question time. Is there anyone in the chamber with a public question? No, there isn't. So we have no confidential. And the date of the next ordinary council meeting is scheduled for 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 18th of June to be held at Council Chambers, Civic Centre, 23 Dundebar Road, Wanneroo, and item 10 closure. And the closure is at 7:58 p.m. Thank you for your attendance.